Hi, I'm Tina Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup News. We are day 13 of the strike, United Auto Workers. We are here in Wayne, Michigan, in front of the Ford plant, which is one of the initial locations that went on strike. Shawn Fain, the union president, expanded that out to 38 more locations that are parts and distributions today. Today, joining the workers on the picket line is Dr. Cornel West. Dr. West is obviously a philosopher, an academic, but he is now running for president under the Green Party. So what is the main reason that you're out here today in solidarity with the workers?
Oh, because I can't stand greedy bosses. I can't stand profit-obsessed owners that treat workers as if they're less than human. I come from a rich tradition that's connected to this brother right here, Horace Sheffield the Third, whose grandfather was the first black foreman, whose father was a towering figure who worked with Martin Luther King Jr. and others. And my dear sister,
it's Tanya Taylor.
Tanya Taylor, and my dear
Aaron
brother.
Truitt is here. Aaron Truitt.
Absolutely. So to know, I salute Brother Shawn, his leadership, and I'm just hoping that we can follow through. We need solidarity, solidarity, solidarity. Yes. I know the president was here yesterday, and the symbolic gestures, you know, they're empty if you don't follow through. He broke the back of railway worker strikes already. He's been rationalizing corporate greed for the last 35 years. So it's nice for him to come and to say some words and things, but we need more than pretty words. You got to follow through, because we talking about issues of life and death. We talking about issues of dignity, and we talking about issues of benefits and wages, because the workers have been ripped off, speed ups, take backs, cutbacks, and so forth. And it's a matter of morality, and it's a matter of politics.
Indeed. Morality, you often talk about that in connection with Wall Street, evil corporations, whatnot. And there is a connection between these two things. I wanted to bring up a couple of stories that I heard on the picket lines. We've been out here every day of the strike. Multiple workers have told us that they are working temporary on contracts, 5-7 years. They get transferred to a full-time employment contract, and they're losing $2 an hour. One guy, $10 an hour. That is, I don't know how anyone hears this story and thinks to themselves that's acceptable and it's not, outlandish amounts of greed. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, the great Howard Thurman, who was a teacher of Martin Luther King Jr., talked about the 3 hounds of hell, which is hatred, greed, and fear. And when you look at too often the behavior, not just the corporate elites, but the very way in which the system is structured, it normalizes greed. It provides an incentive for greed. And if greed is not rendered accountable and answerable and responsible to the people who are being victimized, then you're going to end up with not just class struggle and class conflict. It's going to get intensified, and the polarization will be such that you'll lose your democracy, or at least what's left of it. Absolutely. So it's really a blessing for me to be here. And I thank you, Sister Tina. You and Brother Jordan have been magnificent in your covering of these precious human beings of all colors and genders and sexual orientations and religious and non-religious identities, standing together. That's a beautiful thing. And we've seen it before, though, right, Brother?
I just want to say my son has 11 years at Ford at Flat Rock, and he's the 3rd generation. My grandfather had 50 years, my dad had 50 years, and he's in that tier system. And there'll be but one tier, the top tier. Everybody's at the top. Yes. Nobody's in between the middle and the bottom. Yes. Take them all the way up or don't do anything at all. So I'm with the strikers. My daughter, president of the council, she's on the way out here. She appreciates the legacy of the work that were done by folks who are not even union. My grandfather had 30-some years before the union even was here. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's Horace Sheffield the First. And he's third.
I wanted to ask you about party politics for a minute. Of course, you were a surrogate on the Bernie Sanders campaign. I think that was part of a great awakening of labor in the country. What he brought to the table in regards to that is going to outlive anything else he does, I believe. And I think you're part of that. You're the next generation of that, perhaps. So Biden was here yesterday. You mentioned that you're running as a Green Party candidate. Oftentimes, these guys say third-party candidates are spoilers. If we have spoiler candidates, that means Trump is going to win. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I have interviewed a lot of third-party voters. They tend to tell me that they wouldn't vote at all, that they're not necessary. So the assumption that those votes are automatically going to go to the Democratic Party, that's problematic. That's part one. Part two on this is that why aren't the Democrats offering something more to their voters? They know that Biden is not a particularly well-liked candidate. people have been asking for more options. Obviously, you saw that happen with Bernie, where they just kind of stamped that out. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, they did more than stamp it out. They were unjust and unfair to my dear brother Bernie Sanders. The Democratic Party was not democratic. The Democratic Party was anti-Socratic. They didn't want serious dialogue to result in consequences. They're doing the same thing now with the primary. They have a primary, no debates, no serious challenge. The DNC has already decided who is going to be the candidate. There's a good chance that Biden might not be the candidate, just like there's a good chance that Trump might not be the candidate. But you see, for me, in the end, it's really about bearing witness. I come from a tradition and a people who tell the truth and pursue justice no matter what the consequences are. I don't engage in narrow Machiavellian calculations to see how you move X and Y. No, this is issues of integrity, honesty, and decency, and most importantly, being in solidarity with those out of my own biblical tradition, the least of these, those Franz Fanon called the wretched of the earth, working people, not just in America, but in the world. That's why I'm against the militarism that's going on in Europe and on the West Bank, Palestinian brothers and sisters, and Dalits in India. This is a moral and a spiritual issue. And Brother Horace and I, we were at Union Seminary together. Oh, yes, we taught together. He's a student of mine. I'm a student of his. You see them? And we're trying to hold up a bloodstained banner of truth and justice. The condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak.
Do you have time for one more?
One more question.
Okay, one more question. I think this is important discussion that needs to be had as well. Oftentimes, you'll see government hand out loans to these corporations with absolutely no strings attached, no stipulations. For example, Ford was given a very large loan. Billions of dollars in loan, but they never seem to want to attach any stipulations, whereas you could say, we're going to give you this $30 billion, this is taxpayer funded money, you're going to have to keep the jobs in the country, you're going to have to unionize the electric vehicle plants, reopen a plant maybe in an area that is in need of more jobs. There are things I think the government could be doing in that regard, but we don't see them happening. We don't see Biden doing it, and we certainly don't see Trump doing it. Trump is, tomorrow night, or tonight actually, going to be speaking at a non-union facility, trying to address union workers, which makes no sense to me.
He's being true to his reactionary self. That's all. He's being true to his reactionary self. He's never been in solidarity with poor people and working people. And you know what I mean? There's no doubt about that. But the important thing is that we've got to sustain our solidarity at this moment, because they're trying to divide and conquer. They're trying to break the spirits, because the brothers and sisters of all colors are out here together. They fighting together, they laughing together, they crying together, they dancing together. They got to stay together in the face of this tremendous power. But corporate elites ought to understand, and greedy bosses ought to understand that they think they're mighty, but there's something mightier, and that's the people in solidarity with each other, with a moral and spiritual force behind them. And that's why we're here.
So you just met Dr. Cornel West on the picket line. He came out in solidarity to stand with you guys. What are your thoughts on him coming out here, his campaign as a Green Party person?
Well, my thoughts is that we just like to support, to let us know that we're not doing this in vain, even though it's about our wages and ending tears, but just to know that a presidential candidate came to just support us. Solidarity, that's what he was saying, so.
100%. And what is your name, and how long have you worked here at the Ford plant?
My name is Tanya Taylor, and Tanya Embry Taylor. I work at the Ford plant here.
Are you a full-time?
I'm a full-time. I've been here 11 years.
Okay. So you're seeing some of this in the period of the last 10 years. You've seen some of these tiered workers that are coming in.
I was a tier worker. It took me 8 years to get the full pay. 8 years, right. Plus I had to transfer from another plant to come to this plant, because one of the plants that was only a 2-tier plant, I went as far as I could go, and that's when I transferred over here.
Right, so we were hearing stories where people finally get to full-time, and then they're taking cuts in pay from their temporary to full-time per hour, or they have to transfer someplace else where they don't have that $25 cap. There's so many various pay scales out there. It's kind of hard to keep track of, quite frankly.
Yes, it is.
So what do you think is the most important concession you folks are looking for? I know Ford came back to the table. They're going to bring back COLA. they're going to get rid of the tiers and make 90 days from part-time to full-time. Also, a new one where you get to strike at plants that are looking to close, which I think is important because that's more about job security after you get your pay increase.
Yes. I think one of the most important thing is to make us one. You know, you have to go from the bottom to the top, but it shouldn't take us so long. Shouldn't have to take 8 years to get the top pay. You know, so.
I feel you. Thanks for talking with. And COLA.
Right.
Cost of living.
Cost of living mostly, because you see how things are going up. So, right.
You know, why was it important out of all the places that you could be today? Why did you want to stand with these workers?
Well, on Monday I was in New York, and I'm here because my brother invited me to speak at the university and so forth. But I would never miss any opportunity to be in solidarity with workers who were striking in the name of justice, no matter where I am.
And they're not just fighting for themselves, but they're fighting
for working people all around the country and the world. But this is a global struggle. No, class struggle is real. Class struggle is very real, and you have to choose which side you're on. There's no doubt about that. Definitely. Did you want to say something, Brother Aaron?
No, I'm just
You all right?
participating with you. No, I'm fine. Thank you though very much. Very much.
Did anybody else want to say something? You want to say something, my sister?
I was already on here.
You all right?
Yeah.
You want to say something, sister?
You said it all.
you
said it all.
No,
You said it all.
no, my sister say anything she want to say.
You was just happy to be there.
I was just happy to be here to support, and I'm glad that you're here to support us. The UAW.
Yeah, UAW on the move.
That's it.
In the language of John Coltrane, a force for good. Strong force for good together.
That's right.
That's it.
Solidarity forever.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. No, we salute
That's
you.
it.
Absolutely.
Hello, Mr. West.
How are you doing there?
I work for French TV.
Oh,
So
yeah.
can I ask you, why did you come here?
To be in solidarity with my brothers and sisters of all colors who are struggling in a magnificent way. And my dear brother, your name?
Corey Cox.
Brother Corey in the house. He's strong as ever, too. Indeed. But no, it's just important that we put our bodies on the line so people can see that the very things we talk about are enacted in our deeds, in our action, in our praxis. And we do it with a smile, and you can see these wonderful too, with style.
All right.
And that's very important. Got to have smile and a style injected into solidarity.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Nice seeing you, brother.
Good to see you, my brother.
Right.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Is it important for politicians to come here? Biden yesterday, today it's you, it's Trump as well. Like, what do you think of all of that?
Well, but it depends on your actions. You know, people can say and do anything and move somewhere else. What we love about Martin Luther King Jr. was he said what he meant and he meant what he said, which is to say his actions were in accord with his words and his words were in accord with his action. And none of us are perfect, but that's the legacy that we're trying to keep alive here. And that's why this is so fundamental. At this particular historical moment, it's a new day for labor. We hope it's the end of the age of corporate greed. That's what we're trying to initiate, and that's what we're trying to sustain over time and space.
And for French people who don't know you necessarily, what do you stand for? If you have to raise you.
I stand for my mama's love and my daddy's courage. I try to stand for love and courage that's been put and poured into me by those who came before. Brother Horst, you want to say something, man?
Non, je suis très fatigué.
Ah, vous êtes très fatigué.
Très fatigué in fighting for what my father stood up for when he had a sound truck at the Ford strike calling black workers out. And we see all these profits and unbelievable sums of money being paid people at the top that's being made by folks below. And it's time for some equity. I have a son, it's personal for me. I have a son, 11 years. And he's not making what other folks make. And to have someone standing next to you doing the same job, making more than you, that's not fair. So I really hope they solve this double tier system and pay these workers what they deserve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To be here, Cornel West is someone who I've admired since I was a kid. He's one of the reasons why I got into politics. I grew up under his leadership. So just glad to be here to stand with the working, everyday working families in Detroit and around the country. I always say that this is a fight not just for UAW workers and individuals who are working in our plants, but the middle class throughout our entire country. And so just want to continue to encourage them, to inspire them to keep fighting. Record profits means record contracts, and we stand for that. And so let's continue to lift them up, and I'm standing here with them in support today.
What about the history of your great-grandfather and your grandfather in terms of their legacy for workers?
Over 80 years, I think.
Well,
over 100
years between two of them.
Over 100 years between the two of them. My brother now has been with Ford for 13 years. And so it's in my blood. It's in my legacy. And so I stand here. These are brothers and sisters to me in the fight for labor and for everyday working families. So I'm just glad to be here.
Can we ask you a couple questions or no? I don't know if you saw up in Flint, we were there a couple days ago at Swartz Creek facility. There was some sort of hit and run. I don't have all the details on this. What are your thoughts on that?
I just think it's unfortunate. I mean, these are, individuals standing up for a cause. It's about protecting working class families in this country, and we should be protected in doing so. And so it's an unfortunate situation, but I don't want people to be intimidated or discouraged in continuing this fight because you're standing up for a good cause.
I think in many ways the opposite is happening. People are becoming more galvanized, more unified every time they get something like that happens. You know, in Flint, this is an area, I spoke with one of the workers, they still don't have drinking water across the board. One of the workers that was there on strike is using bottled water to cook with. And I also wanted to mention the UAW came by with a giant truck of bottled water for folks that are in need of that. But it's crazy to me that in Michigan, a decade later, there's still not 100% clean water in Flint.
Leadership matters, right? Leadership matters is something that I think we've all have tried to address and will continue to try to address. I think all of the leadership in our delegation in Lansing matters. Our governor matters. And so we're going to continue to address the issue in Flint.